Hello, this is Samantha McCarthy with Lawrence Associates, and today I'm here to discuss composting at your facility. So our first slide goes over our agenda. Right now we're discussing what you're currently using, your waste removal system. So that just might be, as you may know it, as your local garbage collector that comes. You may have either a dumpster or small bins depending upon the size of your facility and what you utilize currently. You may also have a recycling system, but that may not get rid of a lot of the extra waste, particularly the organic waste, which is actually what causes the smell and sanitation issues in your facility. So because of all this, our solution is composting, and we're also going to discuss how much of a budget it's going to have, and then the conclusion overall. So our next slide discusses the decrease in sanitation. So this is a decrease in sanitation issues. A lot of your bins may actually occasionally have a smell to them. They may have organic material either on the inside or outside that is actually stuck to it. And this is something that we want to eliminate. So you'll have a separate container that you'll be utilizing along with your garbage. And this container will have a cover on it so it seals. And this will make it so the organic material that you have actually stays locked away until you put it in the tumbler. And we'll go over the tumblers in a little bit as well. So you want to just remember there's a couple things that you're going to want to put in there and not put in there. We'll discuss all that sort of things as well. And your environmental services will be the ones helping you. You can use a lot of your regular staff that can utilize the different areas and aspects of this. And training can be done as easily as your regular meetings. So our next slide discusses sustainability. Here in Vermont, it is a green state, or at least is trying to be. So there's a lot of overall green and sanitary and sustainable things already in practice, which is pretty nice. So this is something that can be easily done here in the facilities, as well as the patients and the staff taking this at home, this concept of composting and actually helping themselves as well as the local areas. So with the sustainability, a lot of the facilities we know have local gardens that they utilize to help with either food for the staff or food for other patients or food for food shelves. And this is something that the compost that you make from this composting process will actually be possibly used for the gardens themselves, which will actually decrease the cost in another way, not just in your decreased cost in waste systems. So it'll also overall in a global way decrease greenhouse gases because instead of methane being built up from organic material in a landfill, it'll actually be not as built up because these systems are turned, these organic materials actually decay better and are done in a more systematic process. So our next slide goes over that the solution for this issue of decreased sanitation and lack of sustainability is composting. So composting is also on top of all the rest of things easy. So the signage that you see is one of the ones that we can utilize. You can also make your own depending upon what food services you have available. Now, you can also utilize compost-friendly materials like forks, cups, and plates. And this is something that can be done at a later point in time, and we're not going to get into completely, but just know that you have other options to add on to this system. Our next one is the compost tumbler. Now, this is what I was discussing previously in my written report. The tumbler can be used, you take the regular containers that we'll use for the composting, you put all the material into the tumbler gets spun. This can be done by any staff member, it takes minimal training and does not have additional cost. We'll go over the budget later on, but the cost of these are actually rather reasonable. Many of the local garbage facilities will actually take compost materials as well, but you're not going to get as much of a decreased cost because you're still going to have to buy compost material for your local gardens. Now, the next slide that we go is just going over the compost process. So a lot of people don't understand the things that they can put and can't put in and what it does. So you have your brown materials, your green materials, and that makes your black compost. There's a whole process with the different organisms, the anaerobic, aerobic organisms that go into this. But overall, all our facilities need to know is what you can put in the proper things, put it in the tumbler, you spin it certain times, and you go from there. It's a very simple process that actually helps out a whole lot. Our next one is composting at work. There's a lot of great little things, and especially if you have a pediatric office, you can utilize some of these see-through containers as well that can help show children how this works, or even the staff themselves, because a lot of them may not understand exactly how composting is done. And you can have a small section of just this composting clear material that can be very beneficial to just the overall understanding and seeing how the process works, just making people have a more visual aspect of things. Now, the next thing we're going to go over is our budget. So the budget on this process really isn't as scary as it seems. So the materials are your materials for your meetings, your materials for your signage, all of that. You also have, of course, your tumbler. That's going to be your biggest cost overall. And many times they're pretty reasonable. Like I said before, a lot of facilities will actually do free things where you can bring it into a local facility. But the tumblers themselves, I was able to find some that were between the $100 and $200 range. The one I have listed is $179, and that can be easily spun, easily turned, is weather ready, and things like that, especially in these cold climates in Vermont. We also have $20 for signage. That's ink, that's paper, that's all the pamphlets that you're going to hand out. So that's something that can also be easily updated and isn't going to increase your cost too much. There isn't going to be too much education. This is something that a task of a regular employee can take on without adding too much to their day-to-day already projects. And then the signage can be distributed throughout the regular meetings that the facility may have, or in services if it's actually a medical home. There's also the collection containers inside, and those can be as cheap as $18 a piece. So, and that's something that we may want to look at total, and the total cost isn't overall anything too overwhelming. So for our conclusion, this whole aspect of things is cleaner. It's cleaner than using just regular trash materials. It's easy, and it formulates a sustainable environment. And for a facility to even show that they're sustainable would be very beneficial, because that's something that the patients will take home in their mind, knowing that their facility cares. Are there any questions from anyone? I would like to see if there's anything. And if not, we'll just go from here. Thank you, and let me know if you need any further information.